Hey everyone. I never thought I'd find myself writing here. But I guess that's life, full of surprises, most of them unpleasant. I don't even know how to start this without sounding like a whiny mess, but maybe that's exactly what I've become. My wife, Emily, went to a party last night despite me telling her I didn't want her to go. It wasn't just a casual request either. I had a bad feeling about it. She laughed it off, called me controlling, and walked out the door without a second thought. Let me back up a bit to give you some context. Emily and I have been married for 6 years. We don't have kids, her decision, not mine. She always said she wanted to focus on her career and enjoy life before settling down. I agreed because I loved her, or at least I thought I did. Over time, though, it felt like she was more focused on enjoying her life, while I was just an accessory in it. This party, though, was different. She's been going out more and more lately, claiming it's for networking. Last night, she didn't even bother coming up with an excuse. When I asked her who'd be there, she shrugged and said, "Just friends. Don't wait up." That was it. No reassurance, no care for how I felt. Just those cold, dismissive words. I tried to argue, to tell her I didn't feel right about it, but she rolled her eyes and left anyway. I sat in our living room, stewing in my frustration. At first, I thought about texting her or calling, but then I realized it wouldn't make a difference. Emily doesn't listen to me anymore. Honestly, I'm not sure she ever did. So, I decided to ignore her for the rest of the night. No texts, no calls, nothing. If she wanted her freedom so badly, she could have it. I didn't sleep much. I kept picturing her laughing with people I didn't know, drinking, maybe even flirting. My imagination ran wild, and every thought felt like a knife twisting deeper into my gut. Around 2 a.m., I finally heard the front door open. She didn't even try to be quiet. Her heels clacked against the floor, and she let out a little giggle before stumbling up the stairs to our bedroom. I didn't say a word. I pretended to be asleep, though my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might give me away. This morning, things took a turn I wasn't prepared for. When I woke up, she was already gone. There was a note on the kitchen counter that said, "Had to run out early. Don't wait up for me tonight either." That's it. No explanation, no apology for coming home late. Just another reminder that I'm not a priority in her life anymore. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. I mean, who goes out 2 nights in a row without even discussing it with their spouse? I started to do something I never thought I'd do. Snoop. I checked her phone. Not that she'd left it lying around. She's smart enough to keep it locked, and her password isn't something I'd ever guess. Then I went to her laptop. That's when I found her messages. What I read made my stomach drop. There were texts from some guy named Ryan, someone she'd never mentioned to me. They weren't explicit, but they were flirty enough to make my blood boil. He texted her something like, "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again tonight." And her response? Same. "Just don't make me drink as much this time." Well, I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. I don't know what I expected, but seeing those messages hit me harder than I thought it would. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely close the laptop. It's like everything I've been afraid of was finally staring me in the face, daring me to confront it. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to confront her right now, but another part of me is scared of what she'll say, or worse, what she won't. I feel like a fool for letting it get this far, for ignoring all the red flags. This is just the start of what happened, but there's so much more. I'll keep updating as things unfold. I'm still trying to figure out how to handle this without losing what little dignity I have left. If anyone has advice, I could really use it right now. After finding those messages, I didn't know what to do with myself. My mind was racing, but my body was frozen. Every possibility, every worst-case scenario, played out in my head. I thought about texting her right then and there, demanding answers. But what would that accomplish? She'd deny everything, probably call me paranoid or controlling again. No, I needed more than just a text exchange. I needed to know the truth. I spent the rest of the day in a haze. I couldn't focus on work, couldn't eat, couldn't think about anything else. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart would leap, hoping it was her. But it never was. She didn't check in, didn't ask how my day was going, nothing. It was like I didn't exist. Meanwhile, I kept thinking about Ryan. Who was he? How long had this been going on? Was last night the first time? Or was I just now catching up to something that had been happening for months or years? By the time evening rolled around, I'd worked myself into a frenzy. I kept picturing her getting ready for another night out, putting on makeup, slipping into some dress she knew would turn heads. For Ryan, not me. The thought made me sick. I wanted to storm out of the house and find her, drag her home and demand she tell me everything. But instead, I stayed frozen on the couch, staring at the door like a dog waiting for its owner to come home. When she finally did come home, it was nearly midnight. I heard the door open and close softly this time, like she was trying not to wake me. I stayed where I was, pretending to be engrossed in the TV. She walked into the living room, wearing a black dress I hadn't seen before. It hugged her figure a little too well, and I couldn't help but wonder if she bought it specifically for Ryan. "You're still up?" she asked, her voice casual, like she hadn't just spent the entire day ignoring me. "Couldn't sleep," I replied, my eyes fixed on the screen. She hesitated for a moment, then walked past me toward the kitchen. I could hear her rummaging around, probably for water, or maybe to avoid talking to me. I turned the TV off and followed her. "Where were you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Out," she said without turning around. "Out where?" "Just with some friends." "Why?" She finally looked at me, her expression half annoyed, half bored. "Is this an interrogation?" "No," I said, though it sure felt like one. I feel like you've been distant lately." She sighed, like I was exhausting her just by existing. "Don't start, okay? I had a long day." "A long day doing what? Networking?" The words came out sharper than I intended. Her eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I don't know who you are anymore, Emily. You go out all the time. You don't tell me where you're going or who you're with, and now you're coming home at midnight wearing dresses I've never seen before. Am I supposed to just ignore all of that?" "Maybe you should," she snapped. "Maybe if you weren't so clingy all the time, I wouldn't feel the need to get some space." "Clingy?" I repeated, my voice rising. "You barely even talk to me anymore. How is that my fault?" She rolled her eyes and grabbed her water bottle. "I'm not doing this with you right now," she said, brushing past me and heading for the stairs. I stood there for a long time after she left, staring at the spot where she'd been. My hands were clenched into fists, my jaw tight. I wanted to scream, to punch a hole in the wall, to do something, anything, to release the anger and frustration boiling inside me. But instead, I just stood there, silent and powerless. The next morning, she was gone again before I woke up. No note this time, no explanation. Just an empty house and the sinking feeling that whatever we had was slipping away, if it hadn't already. I decided to take matters into my own hands. If she wasn't going to tell me the truth, I'd find it myself. I reached out to an old friend, Mike, who worked in private security. He owed me a favor, and I figured now was as good a time as any to cash it in. "Hey, Mike," I said when he picked up. "I need your help." "What's going on?" he asked. "It's Emily," I said, my voice breaking a little. I think she's cheating on me." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I'm sorry, man. What do you need me to do?" "I need to know for sure," I said. Can you follow her? See where she's going, who she's with?" "Yeah," he said after a moment. "I can do that. Send me her schedule, if you have it, and I'll take care of the rest." I hung up the phone and took a deep breath. It felt wrong, spying on my own wife, but what choice did I have? She wasn't giving me answers, and I couldn't live with the not knowing. I had to find out the truth, no matter how much it hurt. That night, I waited for her to come home, my heart pounding with anticipation. She walked through the door around 11, smiling to herself like she'd just had the time of her life. She didn't even notice me sitting there in the dark. "Emily," I said, my voice cutting through the silence like a knife. She jumped, her hand flying to her chest. "Jesus, you scared me. What are you doing sitting there?" "Waiting for you," I said. "Where were you?" She sighed, exasperated. "I already told you. Out with friends." "Which friends?" I pressed. "Can you even name one?" Her eyes flashed with anger. "I don't have to justify myself to you," she said, her voice icy. If you don't trust me, that's your problem, not mine. She stormed upstairs, leaving me alone in the darkness once again. But this time, I wasn't just angry. I was determined. Whatever she was hiding, I was going to find out. And when I did, there would be no turning back. The next morning, I woke up to an empty bed again. Emily was gone. No note, no message. It was becoming a pattern, one I could no longer ignore. The house felt eerily quiet, the kind of silence that eats away at you when you're alone with your thoughts. But today was different. Today, Mike was going to start following her. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was taking control of my life again. I sent Mike a text, giving him the details of her schedule, or at least what I thought her schedule was. She hadn't exactly been forthcoming about her plans lately, but I knew she usually left around 9 a.m. and didn't come back until late. Mike responded quickly, "Got it. I'll keep you updated." The hours dragged by like molasses. I couldn't focus on anything. My phone was glued to my hand, my stomach in knots every time it buzzed. Finally, around noon, Mike called. "She met a guy," he said without preamble. My heart sank. "Who? Where?" "They met at a coffee shop downtown. Tall guy, brown hair, mid-30s. They were pretty cozy. Lots of laughing, touching. Definitely not just friends." I clenched my jaw, trying to keep my voice steady. "Did you get a name?" "No, but I got pictures," Mike said. "I'll send them to you." A few seconds later, my phone buzzed with a series of photos. There she was, sitting at a small table by the window, smiling like she didn't have a care in the world. Across from her was a man I'd never seen before. He was leaning in close, his hand resting casually on hers. My stomach churned at the sight of it. "What now?" Mike asked. "Keep following them," I said. "I need to know everything." The rest of the day was a blur. I couldn't stop staring at the photos, replaying every interaction we'd had over the past few months in my mind. How long had this been going on? Was this the first guy, or just the latest in a long line? Every question felt like a dagger to the chest, but I couldn't stop myself from asking them. Around 7 p.m., Mike called again. "They went to a hotel," he said, his tone cautious. "A hotel," I repeated, my voice hollow. "Yeah, they checked in about 30 minutes ago. I didn't follow them inside, but it's pretty obvious what's going on." I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. My worst fears were no longer fears. They were facts. Emily was cheating on me, and she wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. I thanked Mike and hung up, my hands trembling. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the wall, trying to make sense of everything. Part of me wanted to confront her right then and there, to drive to that hotel and catch them in the act. But what would that accomplish? She'd just deny it, twist the story, make me feel like I was the one in the wrong. No, I needed a plan. Something that would force her to admit the truth, something she couldn't talk her way out of. When she finally came home, it was past midnight. She looked different. Her hair was slightly messy, her makeup smudged, and there was a smug little smile on her face that made my blood boil. "Late night?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Yeah," she said, not even bothering to look at me. "Work stuff." "Work, huh?" I said, standing up from the couch. Funny, I didn't know work involved checking into a hotel with some guy. Her head snapped toward me, her eyes wide with shock. "What are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about, Emily," I said, holding up my phone with the photos Mike had sent me. "Care to explain this?" She froze, her face going pale. For a moment, I thought she was going to come clean, but then she did what she always does. She lied. "That's not what it looks like," she said quickly, her voice rising. "He's just a colleague. We were working on a project, and we needed a quiet place to go over the details." "A quiet place," I repeated, laughing bitterly. "Is that what you call a hotel room these days? Do you think I'm an idiot?" Her eyes narrowed, and her expression shifted from panic to anger. "You had me followed? Are you serious? That's disgusting, Alex. Do you even hear yourself right now? You're acting like some kind of paranoid stalker." "Don't turn this around on me," I said, my voice shaking. "You're the one sneaking around behind my back, lying to me, making me feel like I'm crazy." "Well, guess what? I'm not crazy," Emily, I see you for who you really are now. She crossed her arms, her jaw tightening. You don't know anything, she spat. You're just insecure and pathetic, always looking for a reason to blame me for your own failures. Her words hit me like a slap to the face. I felt my resolve falter, my anger giving way to a crushing sense of defeat. How had we gotten here? How had the woman I loved turned into this? I deserve better than this, I said quietly, more to myself than to her. She laughed, a cold, mocking sound that sent shivers down my spine. Better than this? Please, Alex. You should be grateful I'm still here at all. No one else would put up with you. With that, she turned on her heel and marched upstairs, leaving me standing there, shattered and alone. For the first time, I realized that whatever we had wasn't just broken. It was beyond repair. But I wasn't done yet. If she thought she could walk all over me and get away with it, she had another thing coming. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The silence in the house was deafening after she stormed upstairs. I stood there, staring at the staircase, my fists clenched, my heart pounding. Her words echoed in my head like a haunting refrain. You should be grateful I'm still here at all. Grateful? For what? For being lied to? For being treated like I was some useless accessory in her perfect little life? That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. My mind was racing, filled with anger, humiliation, and, surprisingly, determination. The next morning, I decided it was time to get ahead of her games. I reached out to Mike again, asking for more help. This time, I wanted proof, irrefutable evidence that Emily couldn't deny. If she wanted to play dirty, I was prepared to meet her on her level. Mike agreed to continue following her and dig deeper into her activities. He didn't judge me, but I could hear the pity in his voice when he said, "You don't deserve this, man." As much as I appreciated his support, his words only fueled my anger. I didn't deserve this, but Emily clearly thought I did. Well, she was about to find out just how wrong she was. I spent the rest of the day putting a plan together. If Emily thought she could humiliate me and walk away unscathed, she had another thing coming. Later that afternoon, she came downstairs, acting as if nothing had happened the night before. She was dressed casually, her hair tied up, her face free of makeup. It was a stark contrast to the glamorous version of her that had walked through the door last night, and for a moment, I felt a pang of sadness. This was the woman I fell in love with, the woman I thought I'd spend my life with. But that woman was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. "Morning," she said, not looking at me as she poured herself a cup of coffee. "It's afternoon," I replied coldly. She shrugged, taking a sip. Whatever. I wanted to confront her right then and there, to throw the photos in her face and demand answers. But I held back. I needed to play this carefully. If I pushed too hard, she'd just retreat into her lies, and I'd be left with nothing. Instead, I kept my distance, watching her closely, waiting for the right moment to strike. As the day went on, she started getting ready to leave again. I could hear her upstairs, rummaging through her closet, humming to herself. The sound made my skin crawl. How could she be so carefree while I was falling apart? It was like she didn't even care, like I didn't matter to her anymore. When she came downstairs, she was wearing another dress I didn't recognize. It was short, low-cut, and screamed, "Look at me." My jaw tightened as I watched her grab her purse and keys. "Heading out again?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Yeah," she said, not bothering to elaborate. "With Ryan?" The words slipped out before I could stop them. She froze, her hand on the doorknob. Slowly, she turned to look at me, her eyes narrowing. "What did you just say?" "You heard me," I said, standing up. "Are you going to meet Ryan?" Her lips curled into a smirk, but there was a flicker of something else in her eyes. Fear, maybe. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "You really need to stop being so paranoid, Alex. It's not a good look." "Paranoid?" I laughed bitterly. "I guess it's easy to call me paranoid when you're the one lying through your teeth." She opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off. "Don't bother denying it, Emily. I know everything. I've seen the messages. I know about the hotel. I know about Ryan." For a moment, She just stared at me, her expression unreadable. Then she laughed, a sharp, cruel sound that made my blood boil. "You're pathetic," she said, shaking her head, spying on me like some insecure teenager. "Do you even hear yourself?" "I hear myself just fine," I said, stepping closer to her. "The question is, do you hear yourself? Do you even realize what you've done to this marriage? Or do you just not care?" She rolled her eyes and turned back toward the door. "I don't have time for this," she said. "We'll talk about it later." "No, we'll talk about it now," I said, grabbing her arm. She stopped, her eyes flashing with anger as she yanked her arm free. "Don't touch me," she snapped. "Then stop running away," I shot back. "For once in your life, take responsibility for your actions." She glared at me, her jaw tightening. "Fine," she said. "You want the truth? Here it is. Yes, I've been seeing Ryan. Yes, I've been lying to you. And you know what? I don't regret it. Do you want to know why? Because he treats me like a queen, Alex. Something you've never been able to do." Her words hit me like a freight train. I felt the air leave my lungs, my vision blurring with tears. But I refused to let her see me break. "You're unbelievable," I said, my voice shaking. "I gave you everything, Emily. Everything. And this is how you repay me?" She shrugged, her expression cold. "Maybe if you'd been a better husband, I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere." I stood there, stunned, as she walked out the door, slamming it behind her. The house was silent again, but this time it felt different. The anger, the sadness, the humiliation. It was all still there, but now there was something else. A spark of determination. If Emily thought she could walk all over me and leave me broken, she was wrong. I wasn't going to let her win. Not this time. What she didn't know was that I had a plan, and it was already in motion. Emily's words echoed in my mind long after she left. "He treats me like a queen. Something you've never been able to do." The audacity of it made my blood boil. After everything I'd sacrificed, everything I'd put into our marriage, she had the nerve to pin this on me. But if she thought she was walking away from this unscathed, she had no idea what was coming. I wasn't going to let her rewrite the narrative and paint herself as the victim. Not this time. After she left, I called Mike again. "I need you to keep tracking her," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "Find out where she's going tonight, who she's meeting, and if there's anything else I should know." Mike hesitated. "Alex, are you sure about this? You've already got enough proof." "I'm sure," I said firmly. "I need more. I need everything." He sighed. "All right, I'll keep you updated." I hung up and began preparing for what I knew would be a long night. Emily's betrayal wasn't just a personal insult. It was a complete dismantling of everything I thought we had. And if she was willing to burn our marriage to the ground, I wasn't going to let her walk away without consequences. Hours passed, and I busied myself with small tasks to keep my mind occupied. I cleaned the kitchen, organized the living room, even mowed the lawn. Anything to avoid sitting in the deafening silence of the house. But no matter what I did, I couldn't shake the images from my mind. Her laughing with Ryan at the coffee shop, checking into the hotel, smiling as she walked out the door without a care in the world. Around 10 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was Mike. "They're at a bar downtown," he said. "Looks like a private lounge area. Just the two of them. I sent you the address." "Got it," I said, my heart pounding. "Thanks, Mike. I owe you." "You sure you want to do this?" he asked. "Confronting them could get messy." "I'm not going to confront them," I said. "Not yet." After hanging up, I grabbed my coat and keys. I wasn't going to storm in and cause a scene. That wasn't my style. Instead, I wanted to see it with my own eyes. Maybe it was masochistic, but I needed to confirm what I already knew. I needed to witness the lies she'd been telling me play out in real time. When I arrived at the bar, I parked across the street and waited. Through the large windows, I could see Emily sitting at a corner table with Ryan. She was laughing, her hand resting on his arm, her body angled toward him in a way that left no doubt about their connection. He leaned in close, whispering something in her ear that made her throw her head back and laugh. The sight of it made my stomach turn. This wasn't just a fling or a mistake. This was a calculated betrayal. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was actively building a life with someone else right under my nose. I sat there for what felt like hours, watching as they ordered drinks, shared intimate glances, and acted like they didn't have a care in the world. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I snapped a few photos with my phone, ensuring I had a clear view of both their faces. Then I drove home, my mind racing with plans for what came next. Confronting her wouldn't work. She'd just lie and twist the story until I was the bad guy. No, I needed to hit her where it hurt. Back at the house, I started compiling everything I had. Photos, messages, timestamps, even a record of her late-night returns home. It was a timeline of deceit, laid out in black and white. By the time I was finished, it was well past midnight, but I didn't feel tired. If anything, I felt more awake than I had in weeks. When Emily finally came home, it was almost 2 a.m. She stumbled through the door, her cheeks flushed from alcohol, her hair slightly disheveled. She didn't even notice me sitting on the couch until she turned on the light. "Oh," she said, startled. "You're still up?" "Yeah," I said, my voice calm. "I couldn't sleep." She shrugged and kicked off her heels. "Well, I'm going to bed. Night." "Not so fast," I said, standing up. "We need to talk." She sighed dramatically, clearly annoyed. "What now, Alex? Can't this wait until morning?" "No," I said, my tone sharper than I intended. "It can't." She crossed her arms, glaring at me. "Fine. What do you want to talk about?" I held up my phone, showing her the photos I'd taken. "This," I said. "Care to explain?" Her eyes widened for a split second before she recovered, her expression hardening. "You followed me again? Are you serious?" "Don't deflect, Emily," I said, my voice steady. "Just tell me the truth. How long has this been going on?" She rolled her eyes. "You're unbelievable. You know that? You have no right to invade my privacy like this. And you have no right to cheat on me," I shot back. "So, I guess we're even." Her face twisted with anger. "You're such a child, Alex. Always playing the victim. Maybe if you'd paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have had to find someone else." I felt the familiar sting of her words, but this time, I didn't let it show. Instead, I took a deep breath and said, "You're right, Emily. I should have paid more attention. But not to you, to the signs. I should have seen this coming a long time ago." She stared at me, her expression unreadable. For the first time, she didn't have a snarky comeback. Maybe she realized she pushed me too far. Or maybe she just didn't care anymore. "Here's the deal," I said, my voice cold. "You can either come clean about everything, or I'll make sure everyone else knows the truth. Your friends, your family, your precious Ryan, everyone." Her eyes narrowed, but I could see the fear creeping in. She knew I wasn't bluffing. This was just the beginning, and she had no idea what I had planned next. And honestly, neither did I. But one thing was certain. I wasn't going to let her walk away without facing the consequences of what she'd done. Not this time. Emily stared at me, her confident facade cracking for the first time. "You wouldn't," she said, her voice wavering slightly. "Try me," I replied, my voice low and steady. I wasn't bluffing, and she knew it. She let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "Fine. You want the truth? I've been seeing Ryan for a few months. But can you blame me? You've been so checked out, Alex. You're always sulking, always whining about something. I needed something more. Something more?" I repeated, disbelief flooding my voice. "You mean sneaking around behind my back? Lying to my face? That's what you needed?" "Yes," she snapped, her eyes blazing with defiance. "Because you're not enough anymore, Alex. You haven't been for a long time." Her words hit me like a slap to the face, but instead of crumbling, I stood taller. "Then why didn't you leave? Why stay married to someone you claim isn't enough?" "Because it's not that simple," she shot back. "Do you think I wanted this? I tried to make it work, but you make everything so damn hard." I stared at her, my chest tightening. "You've been blaming me for everything, Emily, but let me remind you, you're the one who broke our vows. You're the one who decided I wasn't enough. So don't you dare try to make this my fault." She looked away, biting her lip. For a moment, I thought she might apologize, might show some sign of remorse. But then she sighed and muttered, "This conversation is pointless." "No," I said firmly, stepping closer. "What's pointless is pretending this marriage still exists. You've killed it, Emily. You made your choice. Now you need to face the consequences." She blinked, clearly caught off guard. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. "I've got the photos, the messages, everything. You think Ryan's going to stick around when he sees what kind of person you really are? What about your friends? Your family?" Her face paled, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. "You wouldn't dare," she whispered. I leaned in, my voice calm but icy. "I told you, Emily. Try me." She said nothing, her mouth opening and closing like she was searching for the right words. Finally, she turned and stormed upstairs, slamming the bedroom door behind her. I sat down on the couch, my hands trembling. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I had the upper hand. But I also knew this wasn't over. Emily wasn't the type to back down easily, and whatever came next, it wasn't going to be pretty. But one thing was clear. I wasn't going to let her destroy me. If she wanted a war, I was ready for battle. The slam of the bedroom door reverberated through the house, leaving me alone in the suffocating silence. But I wasn't shaken anymore. For the first time, I felt a sense of clarity, like the fog of my anger and heartbreak had lifted, and all that was left was cold determination. Emily thought she could brush me off, but she underestimated just how much I was willing to fight back. This wasn't about salvaging our marriage anymore. No, this was about reclaiming my dignity, my life, and making sure she understood just how badly she'd underestimated me. The next morning, she came downstairs with the same attitude she always carried when she was cornered. Smug and condescending. Her hair was done perfectly, her makeup flawless, as if she hadn't just admitted to months of betrayal. She didn't even look at me as she poured herself coffee, humming softly. The audacity was almost comical. "So, what's your plan now, Alex?" she asked, finally turning to face me. Her tone was sharp, taunting. "You going to sit here all day feeling sorry for yourself? Maybe write a sob story for your little friends?" I didn't rise to the bait. Instead, I stood up slowly, locking eyes with her. "Actually, I've been making arrangements." She raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "Arrangements? For what? Therapy?" She laughed coldly. "No," I said, my voice steady. "For a lawyer." That wiped the smirk off her face. "A lawyer?" she repeated, the words barely audible. "That's right," I said, grabbing a folder from the coffee table. "I've already started the paperwork. Divorce. Splitting assets. All of it." Her face paled, but she quickly recovered, crossing her arms and forcing a laugh. "You're bluffing." I tossed the folder onto the counter, right next to her coffee cup. "Take a look for yourself." She hesitated before snatching up the folder, flipping through the pages. I watched her eyes scan the words, her expression shifting from disbelief to panic. You can't be serious," she stammered. "Alex, this is ridiculous." "What's ridiculous?" I said, my voice growing colder. "Is thinking you could humiliate me, lie to me, and betray me without any consequences. Did you think I'd just roll over and accept this? That I'd sit here and wait for you to decide if I'm worth keeping around?" She set the folder down, her hands shaking. "Alex, wait. Let's not do anything drastic. We can work through this." "Work through this?" I repeated, laughing bitterly. "Emily, you've been working through this with Ryan for months. I think you're all out of chances." Her jaw tightened, and I could see her mask cracking. "You're overreacting," she said, her voice trembling. "This doesn't have to be the end." "It already is," I said firmly. "You made sure of that." For the first time, I saw real desperation in her eyes. "Alex, come on. You don't have to do this. Think about everything we've built together." I said, crossing my arms. "And I've realized that everything we've built was a lie. You don't respect me. You don't love me. You made that clear the moment you decided I wasn't enough for you." She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Instead, she looked away, her hands gripping the edge of the counter like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "I'll make this simple for you," I continued. "You can either sign the papers and make this as painless as possible, or you can fight me. But I promise you, Emily, if you try to take this to court, I'll make sure every dirty little secret comes out. Ryan, the hotel, all of it." Her head snapped toward me, her eyes wide with fury. "You wouldn't." "Try me," I said, echoing the words I'd used the night before. "You wanted freedom, didn't you? Well, congratulations. You're about to get all the freedom you can handle." She stood there, glaring at me, her chest rising and falling as she struggled to come up with a response. Finally, she grabbed her coffee and stormed out of the kitchen, muttering something under her breath. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was in control again. Emily might try to fight back. She wasn't the type to give up easily, but I wasn't afraid anymore. Whatever came next, I was ready. This time, I wasn't going to let her win. This time, I was drawing the line, and she wasn't going to cross it. The rest of the day passed in a tense, uneasy quiet. Emily stayed upstairs most of the time, probably pacing around, trying to figure out her next move. I could almost hear her plotting, trying to calculate how she could spin this in her favor. But I wasn't about to let her. By the evening, she finally came down, her expression unreadable. Her usual smugness was gone, replaced by something I hadn't seen in a long time. Uncertainty. She stood in the doorway of the living room, watching me as I scrolled through my phone. I didn't look up, didn't give her the satisfaction of acknowledging her presence. "Alex," she said finally, her voice soft. I glanced at her, raising an eyebrow. "What?" She hesitated, then walked over and sat on the arm of the couch, keeping her distance. "I've been thinking," she began. "Maybe we don't have to rush into anything. I mean, divorce is a big step. Are you sure this is what you really want?" I laughed bitterly, setting my phone down. "You think I haven't thought about this, Emily? You think I woke up one day and decided to throw my marriage away for fun? No, this is what you wanted. I'm just finally giving it to you." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "It's not what I wanted," she said quietly. I got caught up in something, okay? I made a mistake." "A mistake?" I repeated, my voice rising. "Emily, a mistake is forgetting to pick up milk at the store, sneaking around with another man for months, lying to my face, and trying to make me feel like I'm crazy. That's not a mistake. That's a choice." She flinched, her facade cracking further. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered. "But you did," I said, leaning forward. "Over and over again. And the worst part is, you didn't care. You didn't care about me, about our marriage, about anything except yourself." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't feel any sympathy. Not anymore. She wasn't crying because she regretted what she'd done. She was crying because she'd been caught. "Alex," she said, her voice trembling, "please, don't do this." "I didn't do this, Emily," I said coldly. "You did. And now you have to live with the consequences." I stood up, grabbing the folder of divorce papers from the coffee table. "You have until the end of the week to sign these," I said, holding them out to her. "If you don't, I'll file them myself. And trust me, that'll be a lot messier for you." She stared at the papers like they were a live grenade, her hands shaking as she took them. "What about the house? The money?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've already spoken to a lawyer," I said. "Everything will be split fairly. But don't think for a second you're getting more than you deserve." She looked up at me, her eyes wide with panic. "Alex, we can fix this. I'll end things with Ryan. We can go to therapy, work through this." "It's too late for that," I interrupted. "You had your chance, and you threw it away. There's nothing left to fix." She didn't respond, just sat there clutching the papers, her shoulders slumped in defeat. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered all the lies, the late nights, the hotel room, and any pity I might have felt evaporated. As I turned to leave the room, she called out to me. "Alex, wait." I stopped but didn't turn around. "What?" She paused, her voice cracking. "I never thought it would come to this." I glanced over my shoulder, meeting her tear-filled eyes. "Neither did I," said quietly. "But here we are." With that, I walked upstairs, leaving her alone with the weight of her choices. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of peace. It wasn't happiness, not yet, but it was the start of something better, something real. Emily had made her bed, and now she'd have to lie in it. And as for me, I was finally free to start rebuilding my life, piece by broken piece. The days that followed were a blur of paperwork, meetings with my lawyer, and sleepless nights. Emily kept to herself most of the time, a shadow of the confident, self-assured woman she used to be. I'd hear her moving around the house late at night, pacing, maybe crying, but I didn't go to her. I couldn't. We were past the point of reconciliation. She didn't sign the divorce papers right away. I knew she was stalling, trying to figure out a way to regain control of the situation, but I wasn't playing her games anymore. Every time she tried to talk to me, I shut her down. There was nothing left to say. One evening, as I was reviewing the final details of the divorce agreement with my lawyer, Emily came downstairs. She looked different, tired, defeated, like the weight of her choices had finally caught up with her. She sat across from me at the dining table, the signed papers in her hand. "I signed them," she said quietly, sliding the folder toward me. I stared at the papers for a moment, a strange mix of relief and sadness washing over me. This was what I wanted, what I needed to move on. But it was also the end of a chapter one never thought would end this way. "Thank you," I said, my voice flat. She hesitated, then said, "Alex, I'm sorry." I looked up at her, searching her face for any sign of sincerity. For once, she looked genuine, her eyes filled with tears she wasn't trying to hide. "I know I've hurt you," she continued, her voice trembling. "I know I've made mistakes. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I just needed to say it." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to lash out, to throw her words back in her face. But another part of me, one I didn't expect, felt a small flicker of pity. Not for her, but for the version of us that had once existed. The couple we used to be before everything fell apart. "I appreciate that," I said finally. "But sorry doesn't change what happened." She nodded, wiping at her eyes. "I know." We sat there in silence for a while, the weight of everything that had happened hanging heavy between us. Eventually, she stood up and walked away, leaving me alone with the papers that would officially end our marriage. The divorce was finalized a few weeks later. Emily moved out of the house shortly after, taking only what was hers and leaving the rest behind. I didn't ask where she was going or what her plans were. It didn't matter anymore. She was no longer my responsibility. In the months that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. I threw myself into work, reconnected with old friends, and even started going to the gym again. It wasn't easy. There were nights when the loneliness crept in, when I found myself staring at the empty side of the bed and wondering if I'd made the right choice. But every time I thought about going back, I reminded myself of the lies, the betrayal, and the pain she'd caused. And I knew I'd made the right decision. One day, while grabbing coffee at my favorite cafe, I bumped into an old acquaintance, Megan, a friend from college I hadn't seen in years. She smiled when she saw me, and we ended up sitting down and catching up over coffee. There was something comforting about her presence, something easy and familiar that I hadn't felt in a long time. Over time, Megan and I started seeing more of each other. It wasn't a whirlwind romance, but something slower, steadier, something real. She knew about my past, about Emily, and she never judged me for it. Instead, she helped me see that I wasn't defined by my mistakes or my failed marriage. I was more than that. I deserved more than that. One evening, as we sat on the porch of my now renovated house, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Megan turned to me and said, "You seem happier now." I smiled, the weight that had been pressing down on me for so long finally lifting. "I am." For the first time in what felt like forever, I truly meant it. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure. I was finally free from the pain of the past. And that was enough.